Are you drowning in scraps? Can't bear to throw things away? Well, in this series, I'm sharing ideas to help you use your stash to create journals, ephemera, cards, and more.
Hello everybody, welcome back and thank you for joining me. Now, I haven't quite lost my marbles. Well, not all of them anyway. The lovely green brush that I showed you at the beginning of this video was a new cobweb broom. Mr. Jem came home very proudly last week with a new cobweb broom, and I immediately went, oh, look at this. And this was wrapped around the head of the cobweb broom. Look at that. Now, so am I scrap busting today? Well, yes I am, because I'm going to use up bits and pieces. I'm not buying anything new, I'm using stuff that is in my room. Is it using up quite as many scraps as I have been in this series? Well, maybe not, but this is what I'm doing. What I want to do today is to create a journal for myself for dephemerember. Now, dephemerember is the challenge run in December by Louise Heinzel and Barbara from 49 Dragonflies, and I'll put links to both their channels below. And I want to get a little bit prepared. I was inspired by Annie from My Creative Detour the other day, who was making herself a journal, and I thought, what a good idea, let's get prepared. So I want to do something a little bit different this year, and instead of just making a square journal or a rectangle journal, I thought, how cool would it be to make one that's this shape? I may live to regret this, I know. But I sort of have a bit of a plan. Now let me give you an idea about how big this is. It's just about 5 inches across this way, which is, let's have a look, about 13 centimetres. And the whole thing, because I want to cut this bit off, the whole thing going this way is roughly 14 inches, or about 35 centimetres. So it's just going to give you an idea about how big it is. One of the reasons I wanted to show you this was to show you that you can make things from even the most unusual pieces of packaging. Like I say, I wanted something that wasn't just your square cereal box. Nothing wrong with those, and I do those regularly. But I wanted to show you something a little bit different, and I wanted my journal for dephemerember to be a little bit different. So let's go. You will see I've made a couple of little marks here, and I'm going to make that as my spine. From my experience of dephemerember last year, my journal turned out to be a pretty chunky dunky journal. So I want to leave myself a good spine, and that's going to be about 2¼ inches. Or for those of you who work in centimetres, about 5½ centimetres. So I'm going to, now my other thing I want to think about is that here we've got a little tab which was fixed through here. So I think what I'm going to do to start with, I'm just going to cut down here, and I'm going to leave that little tab, and that will give me some options. I may end up cutting it off, but I may not. I may use it. Now, I've been cutting on my poor old silica mat here, and look at this. Yeah, I might have to treat myself to a new one and stop cutting on it. Anyway, right. So this is going to be the start of my journal. What I'm going to do is to try and replicate these marks in the same place down here. Let's find a pencil. Now, what I did do with this was I folded it in half so that trying not to crease this too much, I folded it so that the round shapes were in the same place. If I do it this way, it'll be even easier. And then I made a mark there and there. So if I was to measure from there, it's about 1 1/8 inch. So that should be in about the same place. Okay. Ugh, I only made the mark on one side, didn't I? That's not good. There. And what I am going to do is to reinforce this spine, so don't panic that that's got a fold in it at the moment. Now, using those score lines, I should be able to go like that and like that. And this is going to be my journal cover. Wow, there we go. So, I've got to make pages now, haven't I? What I'm going to do, I'm going to find a scrap piece of paper and make myself a template. Let's have a rummage under here. Oh, look, here we go. This is a piece from a Is this going to work? I don't know. I am really, look, I'm making this up as I go along today. But if I show you what I'm doing and it doesn't work, then you'll know not to do those things, won't you? And look, if it doesn't work, we will make it work. We'll find a way. The other thing that's just occurred to me is this is a 12 by 12 sheet. So if I cut all my pages, if this does indeed work, and I think it's going to be too long, I think we're going to have to adjust the middle. But if I cut all my pages as doubles, then I'm going to struggle with sizes of paper. I know what I mean. Yes, don't panic, it's all right. I'll cut this out. Now, what I think is if I fold this, it might be too big. Let's see. So journal's going to go like this. Yep, that's going to be too big. I thought it was. So that's not going to be a bad size for a journal page. It will need to be just slightly smaller all the way around. And then I think that is going to need to be about there. Let's try that. You're probably screaming at me a really easy way to do this. I tend to do things by fiddling with them. So I reckon if that joins to there and there, so if we had one like that, that would be about right. Yeah, needs to be slightly smaller. So you see what I did? What I've done is actually just to take this, and that would make sense, wouldn't it? Of course, if I'd thought about that more carefully. Right, what that does mean is I will trim these down a little bit so that they fit inside the cover, but what that does mean was if I kept the template like this, I could then join 2 pages together like that, and that would give me enough overlap to make those. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I just confusing you? Because even with those 2 pieces joined like this, that is quite a big piece of paper, and I think that's bigger than A4. Let's find out. This is nice and bright, we'll see. Would that fit on an A4 piece of paper? It would just, by the time that's been trimmed down a little bit, okay, it would just. Right, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to trim these down. I'm going to hold them together, and I'm going to cut round, taking off about, I don't know, what's that, 0.2 of a mil, 0.2 of an inch, yeah, about that, about 3 mil, all the way round, so that it sits inside my journal cover here, so the pages come to about there. All right, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to trace around one of these on its own to make a template, and then I'm going to stick these 2 together to make a second template, and I'll come back and explain why. Right, got my head around this now. This is my first template, and what that will do is sit in there like that, just as you would with a rectangular journal. So that's my page, go in there, form signatures, open out. All right, and that does just, put the card away, it does just fit onto an A4 or letter size piece of paper. But my idea is not to be using new paper for the pages. I want to use packaging, and I want to use all sorts of bits and pieces that I'm using up. Now that might be that I have a printable that I want to use, or you know, something like that. Oh goodness, that's a big roll of thunder. Okay. It's meant to be spring, but we've had lots and lots of rain, and parts of the New Zealand today are under severe weather wind warnings. So yes, anyway, hence I'm indoors. This is the second template I've made, because as I say, I want to use up bits and pieces for my pages, and as you will see, this is like a single page that I could put in, and it could tip in onto another page, or if I cut 2 of these, I can join them in the same way that I've done this one. Hopefully that makes sense. So those are ready to go to cut my pages. This is ready to go to decorate. The other thing I want to do is to cut a piece to reinforce here. Reinforce that spine. And I need to go away now, and I'm going to find some I'm going to find the papers that I'm going to use for the pages, and I'm going to think about how I want to decorate the cover, because I really haven't thought about that yet. I was so excited with this unusual shape that I got carried away. Now, the other thing I had thought of is that I kind of would like this to be a journal that opens this way. In my head, I can see like a handle or something hanging here, and then the journal opening this way, just for something a bit different. So I'm going to go and give that some thought. It's quite a lovely pattern as it is, but and I have to just say, we need these big cobweb brooms because we actually live in the bush. We live in the spider's habitat, and the spiders and I have a constant competition of cleaning and rebuilding. So I clean, they rebuild, I clean, they rebuild. But the cobweb brooms are great. Okay, I'll go away and think about what I'm going to do next, and I'll come back and show you. All right, I've actually pulled out my, this was the dephemerember journal I made for last year, for 2024. And I've pulled this out really to have a quick look at the prompt list. And as you will see, what I mean when I said it got really chunky last year. So I want to have plenty of space. Now, last year, what did we have? 18 prompts. We did weekdays only. I'm not sure whether that's going to be the same this year, so I'm going to aim for at least 20 pages, because I don't mind having some extra, because I can always add extra things in, but that kind of gives you an idea of the size. And we did some lovely things last year. I was just having a quick look back through, and I must have done a flip through of this, and I'll post it below if you're interested in having a look. But anyway, so that brings me back to pages for today. And what I've got is, this is just some old packaging material. It's somewhere between paper and card in weight. And as you will see, I've got this doubled over, and I've literally just pinned my template to it. So I'm going to cut out some of those. I've also got, I've pulled out some magazine pages. Now, my journals, when I look back, any kind of challenge that I do, my journals tend to be, not necessarily by design, but they tend to come out in fairly eclectic without a theme. So I'm going to try this year to maybe have some kind of theme. I don't know. But I've stuck to all neutral colours for the bits I've pulled out for the pages. And some of these will fit the smaller template and some the bigger one. And I love this. This is a printable that I've got left over from something, and I wondered whether I could turn this sideways and what it would look like. So I've got some printables that have been left over. I've got some magazine pages. These are printables that I've created, and I'm going to be working on a way to share these with you. What else have I got? I've got some, this is scrapbook card that I picked up in an op shop, a thrift store recently, and I thought they were, I love this one, very New Zealand with all the ferns. Now these are quite nice card weight, which I think I would like some pages that are a bit thicker, because I know, as I say, last year we got a bit chunky and some of the pages were a bit thin for what I wanted to do. With these, what I think I might do is to put a wash of coffee on the back once I've cut them out, just to take away that white, the stark white. What else did I find? A couple of bigger pieces of scrapbook paper. That one's double-sided. Always good to have a little bit of something like that in. That one's single-sided, but isn't that beautiful? And again, these have just come in packs that I've bought from the thrift store. I've also got a little bit of file folder here, and I've got the old trusty Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. This is actually one of the back pages, the end covers, and the paper in this book is really good quality, and you can hear that. And I've pulled out these couple of pages. I think I might use this, and I'm hoping that I might just about be able to do something with that December poem, as it's dephemerember. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of those out. And literally all I'm going to do is use my templates like a sewing pattern. As you can see here, I'm going to pin them on and cut round them. So once I've done all that, I'll come back and show you, and we'll see what we've ended up with. Okay, so as you can see, I've cut those all out. Some of them, I've got a pile of doubles here, and I've got a pile of singles here. Now with these singles, as I was showing you earlier, what I'm actually going to do is I've folded the little tab or hinge, whatever you want to call it, as I was cutting them, and I'm going to stick them together. I'm going to pair them up and pop them together like this to glue them. In fact, I'll do this one and show you what I mean, because this is 2 pages from the Edith Holden book. So I'm going to do this, and the other thing I'm going to do is to some of these doubles, like particularly this packing paper, are really quite thin, and so I'm going to glue some of the pages together, and I'm thinking, like, I don't want a white back, so I may well go through and I'm going to pair them up and glue some together like this. It's going to get rid of the white, which I don't want, and it's also going to make my pages a little bit more sturdy. Because as I say, last year I found that some of my pages were a little bit thin, and they weren't sturdy enough to hold the medium that I wanted to use. Right, I've just trimmed that one down a little bit, and what I'm going to do is literally line them up like that and stick them down. Now, I've left those quite big. I think I am going to trim, particularly these ones where I've got quite nice patterns. I'm going to trim them down. What's that? That's probably just under a centimetre maybe. Oh, that moved, didn't it? Let's straighten that up. If you're doing something like this, you really just need enough to hold it. Now, I'm also going to be thinking, because I don't want to cover this cute little bird. I think this is maybe a wren. I think that's okay there, because this is actually going to be in the, it's going to be sewn in. So all I'm going to do, and I think my glue stick is going to be strong enough to hold, I'm going to glue there and stick that, line it up and stick that down, and then I'm going to glue this one, and I'm being careful not to get glue on the other page, and then fold it down like that, and then you'll find that's the hinge. There we go, give it a nice crease, and I've made a double spread the same as these. All right, and for me that's just a way of using up pages that are too small to get the double page cut out of. Oh, I missed the corner there. And it's also a way of, because I am using up what I've got, I'm not buying anything at the moment. So it's a way of using up smaller pieces that are left over, or lovely pages from books like this that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to use. So, look, I mean, this is very simple. I'm literally going to glue all the way around the edge, One of the things I will say, I realised as I was doing this, because I pinned as I would do for a sewing pattern, some of my pages have got those tiny pinholes in. Now, I mean, this is going to be a journal for dephemerember, so in some ways I'm really not worried about that. If you were, you could stick your pattern down with washi tape or something like that. Now, of course, because this is hand cut, look at that, it completely doesn't match. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I will trim around some of these pages. I'm also going to ink all the edges, and you know what, I'm not actually bothered. It is a junk journal. I don't want it looking pristine, but that's because I've been cutting it, and not taking enough care, really. But there you go, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through and double up some of the thinner pages. These ones are lovely, these are just the right weight and they're double-sided, so this scrapbook paper is great as it is, but I'm going to sort myself out a couple of piles like that, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do next. Okay everyone, so I have a stack here of all those finished pages, and I think I ended up with 12 double pieces, if that makes sense. Let's have a quick 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which gives me 24 pages, 48 sides, so that's going to be absolutely plenty. I know that last year I ended up doing double spreads for some days, so I do want to leave myself some extra space, particularly as these pages are not huge. They've come out at, she says, not able to find her ruler. Here we go, got a grotty little one here. Okay, so at their widest they're just under 5 inches by about 5.5, so not huge, and of course we lose a bit here, so I want to leave myself plenty of room. Now, I learned 2 things whilst I was sticking these together. What I learned was that my packaging paper, I don't know whether it had moved when I was cutting it or whether it's because it's wrinkled and I smoothed it out as I stuck it down, but the packaging paper was the one I had problems matching the 2 things up. My cutting wasn't quite as bad as I thought doing that first one. It was, anyway, right. So that's the first thing I learned. The second thing that I learned was, if you're doing something like this, now these are the 2 pieces of scrapbook card that I'm going to paint with my coffee here in a minute. If I was going to be sticking these together, what I found was that if you line them up with the centre crease in the right place, and then glue this half, stick it down, and then glue this half and stick it down, it's much easier. All right, these are my 2 bits that I want to paint with coffee. That's not going to be quite big enough. I can do them on my mat, that's fine. The other piece I backed with, the other piece, that gorgeous fern piece, I backed with the packaging. Oh, the other thing I have is I have 1 piece left, 1 single piece, and that was the piece that I cut in vellum. So I'm going to hang on to that, and at some stage when I'm making the journal, I'm going to try and include that as a little tip in there. All right, so let's stand this up. As you can see, I have made myself a cup of coffee. Smells amazing, and yep, you will notice it has bits in. That's because I don't drink instant coffee, so it's made with ground coffee, but that's okay. And I didn't bother to get my cafetiere or French press or plunger, whatever you call them. I didn't get it out, I just chucked some coffee in a cup. But that's okay, those bits will brush off when they're dry. So as you can see, all I'm doing is taking down that glaring white of that card. I could have backed it, but you know, I just thought, oh, let's do this. Let's, you know, ring the changes. And I'm completely out of coffee dyed paper. It's probably worth giving you a heads up at this point. I'm going to be taking a break from videoing for the month of November. Other than my full deck challenge videos on Friday, I'm not going to be putting videos out in November. Well, there might be the odd one, but I'm not doing any consistently. And the reason for that is that I just need to take some time out and catch up. I need to do things like make a new stash of coffee dyed paper. I need to completely clear up my creative space. I have a huge pile of mending, you know, repairs that need doing and things like that. And I also just have some other stuff that I need to do. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break in November, but I will be back in December ready for dephemerember, which is what this journal's for. And of course that's quite an intensive month because you're creating every day. So I'm just kind of being a little bit sensible, taking some care of myself and getting myself organized. So I'm going to be finishing this journal next week in my videos, and then there will be a little bit of a break, as I say, but don't panic, because I want to use that time to research and do some planning and think about what I want to bring you in the new year, because dephemerember, pretty much that's December organized, but it's about the new year. What do you want to see in 2026? If you've got some ideas, do let me know in the comments below. But yes, don't panic, I'm not disappearing. But I am going to be doing a little bit of self-care in November, as well as catching up with some other things. Right, those 2 pages need to be popped to dry. The other thing I'm going to do, which I won't bore you with watching, is to ink all the edges of these. I have a sepia ink, and I'm going to go around the edges of all of those pages. So once I've done that, I'll pop back and talk about how I'm going to put these into the cover. Okay, those 2 pages I coffee dyed are still, or coffee painted, are still drying, but I've got the others, so I should have 10 pages here. I am going to sort these into 2 signatures. And this is just going to be fairly random. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to fold that way so that the December is at the front. There we go. Now, of course, what I've just realised is that I have inked all those edges, and at some stage I'm going to have to trim them up to make them fit, but that's okay. What I'm going to do today is just to show you. So I'm going to have, I think, 2 signatures of 6 pages each, because I've got 2 more on the windowsill drying. Or do I want 3 signatures? I'm going to start with 2. What I'm going to do, now that's my templates, what have I done with my cover? Here we go. What I'm going to do later in the week, so if you watch my video on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing my cover on Wednesday. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different that I haven't tried before. So have a look on Wednesday and see what that is. But what I want to do, whilst I am working on this journal, I am going to do it. Ugh, there's a horrible fly in here this afternoon. We have finally got some nice weather today, and the flies have come out. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these signatures a little bit like a traveller's notebook. in that I'm going to hold my pages, my signatures in with elastic. Now, that's not going to... Oh, thought that was a knot that was going to hold. That's better. Yeah. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 pieces like that, or 3 if I do decide to do 3 signatures. I'll see when I get the other ones in there. And I'm going to, as I say, just like a traveller's notebook, I'm going to hold my signatures in with elastic whilst I'm working on the challenge. And then at the end of the challenge, I will decide whether I'm going to leave them like that or whether I'm then going to use something like a 3-hole pamphlet stitch and put them in permanently. And the reason I'm doing that is when I'm doing journals, and I think particularly for challenges, I really like to be able, I don't think that's tight enough, we'll see. I like the option of being able to take my pages out to work on. Or if I want to stitch round them, you know, I can take them out and do that without having everything all over the place. I'm just going to make this a little bit shorter. There we go. So, and that way also I can move the pages around, I can take them in and out, I can do what I want. I can turn them up the other way. You know, it gives me the flexibility and freedom to work on things without them being in a fixed position. Excuse me. And then, as I say, I can make a decision at the end as to whether I leave them like that or whether I stitch them in. Now, this white elastic is probably not something I would choose to leave in there permanently, or if I was going to, I would use my my sepia ink here and colour it, because you can do that with the elastic, just to kind of tone it in a bit more. I do have some black elastic like this, but for the life of me, I cannot find it right now. And this is one of the reasons I'm going to be taking a break in November, is to have a really good sort out and reorganise everything so that I can find things. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for today. Those other pages are still drying, as I say, so I can pop those in as well. And then on Wednesday, I will be doing the cover. And explaining a little bit more about how I'm going to be using this. Now, I had said originally that I was going to have it flipping up this way, but what I noticed as I've cut the pages is that I have cut them to be this way round, so the music is the right way up. So I think I probably will keep it this way, and I will also be thinking between now and Wednesday what I'm going to do for my cover, for my closure. On my cover, I've got these little tags here. I don't know whether they're going to be big enough. As I say, this was the size that last year's ended up, and even my piece of elastic that was going around the cover, as you can see, if I put that on, it's actually pulling all the pages in. So I've been storing it without that on recently, just to try and let the pages unfurl again. So whatever closure I choose, I think it needs to be pretty expandable, because we've got the nice wide spine here, and I think that the closure is going to need to be nice and wide as well. So I will apply my creative brain before Wednesday, but for now, I hope that's been interesting. Just showing you, what you can do with a different shape. Don't feel you have to stick with the square or the rectangle for your journals. All right, stay safe everybody, have a lovely rest of your weekend, and I will be back and see you on Wednesday. For now, Ka kite anō.